NOAA has updated its hurricane outlook for the Atlantic season, still calling for likely an above normal season in the Atlantic. There is a 50% chance, they say, of an above normal season. There is a 35% chance of a near normal season and a 15% chance that it could be a below normal season. We've only had 4 named storms so far. None of them have reached hurricane status, but that does not mean that the rest of the season is not going to turn active. Now, here's a look at the new numbers from them. The average is over on the left side of the screen based on 30 years of data from 1991 to 2020. 14 named storms, 7 of which becoming hurricanes, and 3 of those becoming major hurricanes. Well, their new update as of August 7th has 13 to 18 named storms, 5 to 9 of those becoming hurricanes, and 2 to 5 of them becoming major hurricanes. I'll show you their original forecast from back in May. You can see that it was just ever so slightly higher, but really not a huge change in those numbers. So, you know, we haven't had an active season so far. It's been a very quiet, almost like the doldrums. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the season is going to stay quiet. In fact, if we look at the tropical timeline, this is based on 100 years of data. How many named storms and hurricanes do we see for each calendar date on the season? And you can see that statistically speaking, we haven't had a lot of activity in the months of June and July, but that activity really starts to pick up as we get into the back half of August through the month of September and into October. In fact, looking at the numbers, 37% of all U.S. landfalls of hurricanes happen in the month of September. We don't average our first hurricane in the Atlantic Basin until August 11th, and we don't average our first major hurricane until September 1st. So it's not that unusual that we haven't had a hurricane yet. We just have only had 4 named storms, and most of them have been fish storms that have barely reached what many of us would classify as tropical systems. Now let's talk about the month of August specifically. Usually by mid-August, we start to see the main development region really ramping up. What that means is we start to get these tropical waves coming off the coast of Africa. We have less Saharan dust, that dry air that inhibits development. So we start to see these storms going on this transatlantic journey westward, and eventually we see more development favored there near the Lesser Antilles. So we're talking the Leeward, the Windward Islands. Some of those head up to the north, up into the Atlantic, and could potentially be game for the U.S. coast on the east. And then we also have systems that make it down into the Caribbean, and then if they enter the warm waters of the Gulf, well, that could be game for somewhere along the Gulf Coast as well. So those are the areas we'll be watching as we head through the month of August.